Yep. I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss? Sir?
I feel the need for speed. Ow! Good morning, Vietnam!
What country you from? What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what?
60% of the time, it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
It's in the hole! It's in the hole!
All right.
These go to 11.
Dr. Lecter, my name is Clarice Starling. May I speak with you?
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
I must break you.
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
We love some movie characters, and sometimes the best way to get into the characters we love is to dig deep into their motive, their calling, and their sense of self, and talk about what they really, really want. This is Movie Typing, where we engage and unveil the intentions and drive of the greatest characters on film. My name's Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado. With me is TJ Wilson, businessman, lover of theology, and personality typing expert.
Hello.
Boss, we are joined by the great Daniel Mothershed again.
Oh, today, this is the sound of my voice, say on the other podcast.
Daniel is a actor and playwright in Denver. Master of all things Muppets, which will be helpful today, because today, this is our Christmas rhythm, is it not, TJ?
It is. We like talking about Christmas movies, which is interesting for someone who hates Christmas.
A lot of Christmas movies are about people who hate Christmas, which is helpful.
That's true. I've been shown a lot of Christmas movies with the attempt that I'll sympathize with the main character and then come out of the end of the story with a love for Christmas.
So other than A Christmas Carol, what do people assume you might empathize with?
Oh, no, it's just all different versions of A Christmas Carol.
Oh,
over
okay.
and over and over again.
I mean, The Grinch, It's a Wonderful Life.
James Caan from Elf.
Hallmark has basically made 90% of their business off of that.
Exactly.
My favorite would be the Penguin in Batman Returns on this front, but, you know.
Solid. That's a solid pull. Yeah.
Solid Christmas movie.
Your father, who is Pee Wee Herman. That is a I always forget that that's a Christmas movie, because it is like really a Christmas movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's two types of Christmas movies. It's a Wonderful Life, 34th Street, Christmas Story kind of movies. And then my favorites are definitely more in the line of Gremlins, Trading Places, Lethal Weapon, and of course Die Hard, which is the best of all the Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm on board.
That genre of kind of Halloween Christmas mashups, also quite tasty.
My 3-year-old loves Nightmare Before Christmas right now,
It's
so
beautiful.
I'm very excited about that.
The stop motion on that is gorgeous.
Yeah. Comfort foods for December. 2 years ago, we hit Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Last year, we hit some Godfather. And this year, we're going to be doing the Muppets Christmas Carol.
That timeline feels wrong to me, but I believe you.
It took us till June to do Godfather, unfortunately, but I'm throwing it in there.
You kept falling asleep and having to start it over.
Some pieces of art, you just got to let them breathe.
Yeah, that's fair.
The three of us do this, where we're talking about movies that no one else apparently on the internet, in the podcast world, have covered. We're like the only folks who have done the deep dive into Clue, and there's no Muppets Christmas Carol deep dives.
Naturally. Are there other Muppet deep dives?
Yeah, but it's kind of like Muppet Cast.
Yeah, sure.
But
Yeah.
I was gonna say they're with Muppet performers. Like they're like Disney puts them out. You know what I mean? Like they're podcasts and discussions with people who are in it. Like last year for the anniversary of A Muppet Christmas Carol, Entertainment Weekly did a great video series where Brett Goldstein, aka Roy Kent, interviewed the cast of the Muppets about making that movie.
This is a good person to bring up, because I imagine y'all are about the same age as he is. And I'm slightly older. I'm born in 76. You guys born mid-80s. Mothershed, which birthday? 87.
I have made it a point in my life to not release that information.
It's not public information.
I imagine you guys are growing up with this movie.
Yeah.
It creates a little bit more affection.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This came out when I was in 10th grade.
Oh, nice.
1992.
And did you watch it, or was it like high school? Were you like too cool for school for the Muppets, or were you?
I to be honest, I can't remember when I saw this. I do remember when it captured my imagination and heart. There's a scene where I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. But I don't remember where I was. I could totally see it was the case that back in the day, in the 90s, like that was what you did. Like going to the movies was the thing, you know, and so I could totally see myself having gone to see this in the movie theater, but I just don't recall. You guys got a first experience of viewing this movie?
No, because I was too young to remember my first.
Yeah.
I have more of an experience of remembering going to see Muppet Treasure Island, which came out, I think, a few years after it, 94,
Yep.
I think. I vividly remember both being at McDonald's before going to see the movie, and the toys at McDonald's were Muppet Treasure Island themed, and then going to see Muppet Treasure Island.
Nice.
So I vividly remember that. I don't really remember seeing this one for the first time, but it's one of those things that like it has, quote, always been there.
Yeah.
Historically, this movie is real interesting. This is the first Muppets project after Jim Henson's death, and it's released just like a year and a half after. It's almost like something that's presented as a, you know, a love letter, I think, to Henson himself.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite the same sort of energy. This feels to me like a darker kind of project than much of what Henson did elsewhere. Except for Dark Crystal. Dark Crystal feels dark.
No, the storyteller is pretty dark. There's some pretty dark stuff. I just recently got back from Atlanta, where they have the Center for Puppetry Arts there, and it is also the largest collection of Jim Henson memorabilia anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wild to go through the not Muppets
Mm-hmm.
part of it and realize how much of what he did was like pretty dark.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, kids.
Yeah.
No, not really.
What was one of his first shows was like called Sex and Murder, wasn't it?
It was called like Sex and Death, Sex, Violence, and Death.
You can shoot somebody in the face with a cannon when it's a puppet, but not, you know, if it's an actual person.
If it's
they
a puppet
frown
or
on that.
if it's a puppet or a cartoon duck where his bill just spins around his head.
Yeah, totally fine.
This is Brian Henson's first directorial project, and it's dedicated to Jim Henson and Richard Hunt. Richard Hunt likewise dies like the year before this is released. Richard Hunt is another Muppeteer who does Scooter, Statler, Janice Beaker, and Sweetums.
Sweetums.
I'm a big Janice fan. I think Janice is hilarious every time she's on.
Janice is a brilliant Muppet.
That would be the blonde and the Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, which is the best named band in the world.
It's so good.
And I would highly recommend the Disney Plus series about them. It is the best Muppet thing to come out in, I'd say, 15 years.
Yeah.
And one of the few Muppet things that Disney has put out that really feels like the Muppets.
Yeah. Like they actually get it on this one.
Well, and I think the thing is they invited Muppet performers to come in and write it.
Right.
So Bill Beretta, who's been performing Dr. Teeth since Jim Henson died, is one of the showrunners and head writers on the show. So it's like, oh, right, this is the Muppets. It's got that feel, which Disney has lacked.
It's in my queue. Speaking of music here in this movie is by Paul Williams. This is essentially a musical.
Oh, yeah.
And Paul Williams wrote Rainbow Connection and Together Again and lots of the famous Muppet
Moving right
tracks, right? And this is the first Muppets movie since 1984, so there's like an 8-year gap. The only Muppets project they do really is Muppet Babies, which is animated, you know, between 84 and 92. So I get the sense that there was some energy here. When I saw it, I know it was like, oh, we're jumping back into this world. And it was different. You know, that was my experience because I had seen Muppets in Manhattan in the theater also. So, and Muppets movie was part of my childhood.
And I also think it's like in a way of sort of honoring Jim and doing something that, like, this is the first time they've done something in a really long time. They chose something that is classic and well known, and like Muppets Treasure Island I really enjoy, but it is much more silly because like the source material, it allows them to be a lot more silly, and like it's Treasure Island is sort of goofy. A lot of their other projects are really goofy, especially the stories that they're telling of classic literature. They make them really goofy. And this is one of the few that I feel like it took its job seriously. Like, we need to do a good job telling this story, and also there's Muppets.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's a really nice way to sort of honor Jim Henson and the seriousness of the work that he did.
Right.
Which is to be silly.
Treasure Island feels more like a Muppet Show sketch.
Yes. Yeah.
Like a Mad Magazine parody.
Yeah.
Than
I'm sure we can read back into this, but like there are some silly moments in this, but I get the sense that all these people are still grieving, and that grief kind of comes into the movie.
Yeah.
Like the tone just has, like when they decide to go sad with Cratchit, for example, I mean, it's very sad.
Yeah.
And so like the theme of death, which I don't know that I really think about the Christmas Carol and the theme of death, but that's clearly all over that piece of literature.
And it's so much of a UK Christmas tradition versus over here, where because every Christmas I know I'm the only one here who watches it, but like every Christmas Doctor Who episode is always kind of a horror show, is something terrifying happening, and that is the UK Christmas tradition of scaring the crap out of children. Which I love, and that's why it's actually a ghost story. And I think sometimes we kind of forget that A Christmas Carol is a ghost story because it's so much about everything else. But when you read the book, which is fine, but like the book is really a ghost story,
right?
And this movie does it better than a lot of the other movies out there.
Yeah, we can. I mean, we can name some Hamlet and the Ghost, and I'm sure there's lots of ghosts. I'm sure going through the catalog.
Patrick Swayze. That joke works on 2 levels.
Well, get into this. I really wanted to nerd out on Muppets for 10 minutes, and I'm drawing the line on this. So we need to do a quick through, or else we're going to get overwhelmed. But to just quick ask you some questions about Muppets. Muppets that you have affection for. Which Muppet, when you come to the Muppets, do you have the deepest affection for?
Like I resonate with Kermit so much, in so many spaces of my life, and like watching him on screen, I'm just like, that guy gets it.
You got one, Mothershed?
Yeah, I got 2. What I've always loved Gonzo. Like I've just always loved Gonzo. I got to see a Gonzo puppet in real life last month. And I'm glad nobody else was around because I absolutely teared up when I saw him.
Yeah, you did.
It was just, I mean, you know, because you both know because I told you, but yeah,
real life, it's different, I'm sure.
I could talk for a long time about seeing a lot of the Muppets in real life because it is wild because they are so lifelike on screen and it is the people that perform them. But when you look at them, you're like, this is foam and ping pong balls. Yeah. But yeah, Gonzo has always been one of my favorites. I think I've always kind of related a little bit to Gonzo in his kind of sort of sense of not really belonging places and being a little outside, like the odd man out of the group, but also hoping to find kind of that place. So that's
we'll probably talk about those themes here in a second.
Yep. And then also Fozzie. I just love Fozzie because he's so funny and so sad, but he keeps trying, and that's what I love about Fozzie.
Yeah. I love that. Big Statler and Waldorf fan, mostly because they remind me so much of my dad's dad. I never really had a connection with my dad's father, but his sense of humor is all over those characters.
Sure.
Kind of slightly distant, making fun of the things, keeping things light and upbeat, and yet kind of, if you look past the curtain, it's real cutting, you know, at times. You're like, oh, that was severe.
Those two those are brilliant characters.
I also, special mention of those because I especially like me and Daniel being friends and being basically anything.
You beat me to it.
Yes.
Like we have been
two of you.
compared ourselves, and we have been compared by multiple people to Statler and Waldorf because we're basically standing in the back making fun of what's happening. Yes. And that's true for almost anything that we're ever at. Like not just performances, but parties and like just standing in a room where there are other people. We are the Statler and Waldorf of that room.
Yeah.
Best Muppets joke.
One of my favorite jokes of all time, always.
I mean, it's gonna be there, yeah.
No, it's actually a Fozzie joke.
Do it.
It's the monologue. It's one of his monologues. And I actually love this joke so much that I want to make sure it gets into the podcast, which means I'm going to play it so that we all can hear it right now.
Okay, time
once again for that furry, fuzzy, funny man, fabulous, freewheeling, fast and frantic Fozzie Bear!
Hey. Oh, wait. Not so fast. Tonight, I am going to use your assistance.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, sir. You and I are going to tell the world's funniest joke.
Is that
This
right?
is all spontaneous, unrehearsed, right, Froggy?
It's unrehearsed, yes.
Okay. Now, Frog of my heart,
Yes.
you will just wait until I say the word here. When you hear me say the word here, you will rush up to me and say, "Good grief, the comedian's a bear."
Good grief, the comedian's a bear!
Check.
When you say the word here.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay, here we go. Ready? Okay, here we go. Now then, hiya. You're a wonderful looking audience. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good grief, the comedian's a bear! You just said here.
That was the wrong here.
Which is the right here?
The other here.
Sure.
Go. Okay. Hey, folks. This is a story you're gonna love to hear.
Good grief, the comedian's a bear! What you said here?
Not that here.
Oh, which here?
Another here.
How am I gonna know?
You know what you hear.
Good grief, the comedian's a bear!
All right. Listen,
Yes. What?
you will know when I point to you. All right, don't grumble. Say, a funny thing happened to me on the way to the theater. At the stage door, I passed a bunch of Muppet fans, and suddenly I hear...
Good grief, the comedian's a bear!
No, he's a nut. He's a wearing a necktie.
Did you understand that joke?
No, but I don't speak Italian.
Oh, that just
And Mother Shed is crying.
It's so funny.
So funny.
And I think to be really nerdy about this, the writing is great. Obviously, like the setup and the build of Fozzie's frustration and poor Kermit's frustration. But that if you were to talk about the Muppets to somebody who'd never heard of them, and you had to say in the context of the Muppet Show, Kermit is the stage manager for this theater, and Fozzie is the MC, and he's there. And what is the two of those two characters' relationship?
Yeah,
you could play them this, and this says every single thing you need to know about the relationship between Kermit and Fozzie, and how Jim Henson and Frank Oz work together.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
You got a favorite Muppets joke?
I have many, and all
sure
of
you
them are a
do.
little too involved, but the two that I'm gonna say are just one-liners. One of them is in A Muppet Treasure Island, and it's a Fozzie moment where for whatever reason they've decided to have him have like an imaginary friend that's inside his finger, and when they realize that the entire crew is like reprobates and pirates and
Roll call! Long John Silver.
Aye, sir!
Short Stack Stevens.
Aye.
One-Eyed Jack.
Aye.
Black-Eyed Pea.
Yeah.
Wall-Eyed Pike.
Aye.
Old Tom.
Aye,
Real Old Tom.
aye.
Dead Tom.
Aye,
Clueless Morgan.
Huh?
Headless Bill. Headless Bill.
Gentlemen, may I see you in my cabin immediately?
Mm-hmm.
Who hired this crew? This is undoubtedly the seediest bunch of cutthroats, villains, and scoundrels I have ever seen, so who hired them?
Kermit's so frustrated and says, "Who hired this crew?" And everybody looks at Fozzie, and then Fozzie looks at his finger and he goes,
Your finger hired the crew?
No, that's silly. The man who lives in my finger hired the crew. Mr. Bimbo.
so good, so dumb, so good. And my other favorite one is in a Muppet movie. It's the best sight gag I think I to that point had ever seen, where he says, "Turn at the fork in the road."
Sure.
There's a
Massive
little
fork in the road. I just remember just being a little kid and being like,
Yes.
"Oh,
yeah,
that's funny. I get why that's funny."
Just like so funny and so stupid. So much of their great comedy is just so stupid, and it's so funny.
My favorite element of the Muppets is their spastic, almost maniacal energy that comes out when they're in a crowd,
Mm.
when they all are screaming together, or they're all laughing together, or they're all partying together, and just all the energy there is always my favorite. And so when they would do those ballroom scenes in the Muppet Show, my favorite joke is everybody's talking, and then somebody yells, "Quiet." And Janice keeps talking, and she says to the person in front of her,
"Look, buddy, I don't take my clothes off for anyone, even if it is artistic."
Yeah, I laugh every time I think about it.
She's so funny.
Lastly, which Muppet do you think most resembles you? Like this is the Muppet that I'm most like.
Resembles us physically, or like
character traits,
like,
and your inner life is your inner life and motive. Since this is a motive podcast,
sure.
Statler and Waldorf.
Yeah, great. TJ took mine.
You guys do. I suppose you guys did say that earlier. I'm a mix between Sam and which is the eagle,
and who is definitely a one. Yeah, just to put it out there.
And I am absolutely Kermit. I'm the straight man. In my own story in my head, I'm the straight man that walks in trying to bring order and get everybody to move forward, and just am failing at it most of the time. And the slightly frustrated, idealistic person.
I get that.
My real answer, publicly and at stuff, it is definitely Statler and Waldorf. But I do feel like when I'm on my own, like internally, it's the two I mentioned. It's Gonzo and Fozzie. Those are the two where I'm like I relate so much to both of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get into this movie?
Yep.
Well, we're going to begin with the introduction of the narrators, which is going to be the Gonzo, the whatever, and
the great,
the rat.
I want to make special mention that there are a handful of really great jokes to help put us into the, like, we need to know what universe we're in.
Yep.
And they do this really, really well in just panning the marketplace.
Well, that was a fine meal.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
Yes, what shall we do now?
Let's have a lunch.
Oh, good idea. Now, quiet down, you villains.
Hey, I'm being stolen! Hey, help me! Help me! Hey, put me down!
What about my nose? Banana peels are coming down.
Come along, ladies. Here's a nice Christmas turkey. Turkey, get your Christmas turkey. Hey, get back in the box there, Martin.
It's a boomerang fish. Oh, guaranteed fresh. Tony fish away, and it comes back to me. Get him while they're fresh.
We need to understand that we're in 1800s dirty, nasty London, and there's merchants on the street selling whatever they can, and also there's Muppets.
There's something about, like, if you were to say, what are the shared, if you had the Venn diagram, what does Christmas and Muppets share together?
Mm-hmm.
There's something about, I don't want to call it dirty side, but the frantic side, the joyful side, there is a melancholy side. There's a nostalgic side, that's all we've been talking about for the first 30 minutes here. And that gets pictured in these little snapshots so well.
When I've seen this movie many, many times, but I intentionally rewatched it this morning, so it would be really fresh in my head. And the first thing I thought in that, like TJ said, when it just pans in and you see the streets and you see whatever, is the first thing I said is, gosh, this feels so handmade.
Yes.
And that's a thing I think that can be a Christmas thing if it's done right. And I think that's such a Muppet thing. I mean, like,
and so much of the handmadeness is about setting the stage as though it's actually a stage, which is great because this book is so often turned into there's so many different stage productions of this, and if
too many, some might say.
Yes, agreed. If you're gonna see it at Christmas time, it's very likely that you're gonna watch a live version of it on stage, and the way the Muppets film at least this particular adaptation is like, it's very stage production design.
And even with A Christmas Carol in general, Dickens did write the book, but it had a huge life after. He would go on tour and perform it himself. I mean, he was a theatrical guy too.
Interestingly enough, on this front, the studio was shocked when they saw how much it cost to make the movie. It was apparently vastly under the budget that they had prepped for.
Sure.
Because they had 90% of the puppets.
Yeah,
They just had to put
true.
different,
All the characters.
they said put different clothes on
Yeah.
them.
But for that reason, I mean, it's just foam.
Just.
Narrators. Well, there's something there about Philosopher and me just peaked up when you said that, you know, everything that we experience that has vast and, you know, unending meaning, you could probably say, well, it's just, you know, the ocean is just so many millions of gallons of cold salt water, you know, or something like that, but it's not.
Just terrifying.
Yeah. Another thing you share with TJ is the
I know.
fear of the sea.
Yeah, I tuned out when you said ocean. So
Well, we begin with the narrators, Gonzo and Riso the rat. Are introduced. Gonzo.
Hello! Welcome to the Muppet Christmas Carol. I am here to tell the story.
And I am here for the food.
My name is Charles Dickens.
And my name is Rizzo the Rat. Hey, wait a second. You're not Charles Dickens.
I am too.
No, a blue furry Charles Dickens who hangs out with a rat.
Absolutely.
Charles Dickens was a 19th century novelist, a genius.
Oh, you were too kind.
Why should I believe you?
Well, because I know the story of A Christmas Carol like the back of my hand.
Prove it.
All right. There's a little mole on my thumb and a scar on my wrist from when I fell off my bicycle.
No. Don't tell us.
just a good little bit.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Yeah.
It's a bit.
It's not the first Aladdin movie. I don't remember which one it is, but there's a great Robin Williams genie joke where he does that too, where he's like, I know this like the back of my hand. Oh, that's new.
Don't tell us your hand. Tell us the story.
Oh, thank you, yes. The Marleys were dead to begin with.
Oh, pardon me?
That's how the story begins, Rizzo. The Marleys were dead to begin with.
Oh.
As dead as a doornail.
It's a good beginning. It's creepy and kind of woohoo, spooky.
Oh, thank you, Rizzo.
You're welcome, Mr. Dickens.
Well, as we go through, we're going to hit each of the Muppets, their place in this story. But what's interesting about our deep dive into these characters is that the Muppets have a personality type, and they are playing characters who likewise would have a personality type. And sometimes those might overlap. Sometimes they might be distant. But
except Rizzo, who is always Rizzo.
Yeah, Rizzo is, and the only one in this entire show that is just playing Rizzo.
I believe performed by Steve Whitmire in this movie, who's also Kermit.
Oh, well, we'll start with Gonzo. Gonzo is one of the three. Kermit, Fozzie, and Gonzo seem like they have that kind of central triad. This is the only character that we typed ahead of time, but we're going to talk Enneagram. We're going to talk about personality typing. And I want to say that all of us off mic have spoken of Gonzo as a 4. 4s are romantics.
Yep.
And Daniel identifies himself as a 4. What do you see, Daniel, in this character that popped for you when you were typing him?
I'm going to begin this by saying I am nowhere near qualified to do a lot of personality typing like these two gentlemen are. But what I do know and love talking about is myself and anything that reminds me of myself. So, therefore, qualified to talk about Gonzo the Great. I did not type him as a 4 necessarily based off of this particular film, but just as a lifelong lover of Gonzo. And the things that I think I relate to the most in Gonzo is that the kind of, there's always kind of a feeling of otherness that I feel like Gonzo has, whether it's just the fact that he looks different than all of the other Muppets. He is not, there's something in him but there's also the internal thing in him that he feels separate from everybody else. He's got a beautiful song in the first Muppet movie where he talks about not fitting in where he is and the hope of that maybe that's out there somewhere, maybe one day he can go there. And that song just makes me just cry. It made me cry as a kid, makes me cry as a grown-ass man in his 30s. It's gorgeous, and that hits something in me of like, man, yeah, that is the goal, and that is the dream. And also he's such a performer and such a showman, but I think so much of that is with the hope that if I wear this thing, if I do this thing, if I perform this act, maybe that'll kind of take care of this emptiness in me. Maybe it'll finally ingratiate me in these, and I won't kind of have this outside other feeling, which I have always related to and love.
I wish I had a coat of silk the color of the sky.
You're talking about the wishing song, right, Daniel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
I think it's called "I'm Going to Go Back There Someday." Yes.
And he's singing about how he wishes he fit in, and he wishes that people like him, and it's to me that song encapsulates so much about fourness.
That I was someone else but me.
Like gives us the picture that we need to understand Gonzo as a 4, especially because he's singing this sad song about how nobody likes him and he wishes that he could have the things that other people have. And then someone interrupts him and says, "Oh, but I like you." And he says, "Okay, great. Can I finish my song now?" like he does not want to be pulled away from that sadness. He wants to experience it because it's like this is the space where it's real.
And he's content with that.
Yep.
Because I mean, it is that song where it ends with him saying he's happy to be him.
Yep.
And that means the melancholy stuff, the sadness, the whatever else. It's like, no, you don't understand. I'm okay feeling like this.
This is part of who I am.
Yeah. I mean, it can get to not talk about the Muppets, talk about real life. That can swing way out of balance, but for the most part.
I think this is correct with Gonzo as a 4. And as you're talking, I'm like, the thing about the melancholy in Gonzo, it's expressed differently than the melancholy we see in Kermit.
Yes.
Than we see in Fozzie.
Yep.
Than we see in Miss Piggy. And it's almost like all these characters all have that gear at some point that they will show you their heart in that way.
Mm-hmm.
From It's Not Easy Being Green on the Kermit side to Fozzie on stage, just absolutely vulnerable, and the sadness that can come from just not getting the audience.
Except with Fozzie. Fozzie doesn't know. Gonzo knows.
Yeah.
Kermit knows.
Yep.
Fozzie thinks
no
he's
idea.
killing it.
Just pushing through?
Yeah.
Or just oblivious?
Fozzie thinks he's great.
Yeah.
And Fozzie's going to tell you that he's doing a good job too, because he's going to reframe all that.
It's excellent. Well, then there's Rizzo. This is a great pairing. Like you have the voice. It's not voiceover all the time. I don't know what you call that sort of character that's a narrator who's in the movie but is kind of invisible.
And more so, they sort of function in that role in Muppet Treasure Island too, but they're much more part of the story in Muppet Treasure Island. Whereas with this one, they're really sitting outside of the story, and every once in a while throwing something in.
Yeah. Right.
Because like TJ said, it does feel like a play.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you go and see some stage versions of Christmas Carol will have a narrator that's totally on the other side of the stage, looking into the action and commenting on it, and that feels like this. Yeah. And they've just taken it a step further of they'll talk to them as well. But yeah,
the only character that I can kind of think of, and it actually may have a very similar feel to Christmas Carol, it comes out of Dante. It's Virgil is taking Dante through, the circles of hell and showing him things that are, here are images of things that are dead, and there's like a meaning that's supposed to wash over Dante and the reader. And that actually, as I'm saying this, that's what it feels like Christmas Carol kind of is. I'm going to lead you through these times.
Christmas is hell, folks. You heard it here first. Is that what you were saying?
That's it. We're done.
Rizzo ends up being the comic relief, though. It's again, the British side of this, there's kind of a Shakespearean element here of keep things light, but we're going to talk about some heavy things.
Yeah. I also think it's a really great way to Christmas Carol is not written with a narrator in mind. Like it's not a narrator who's telling the audience things about the story. Like it's just the story. And so when we see Gonzo of all people show up as a narrator, Rizzo exists to help remind us that Gonzo is a character playing the narrator.
Right.
And it helps us feel like this is the way they break the fourth wall, is by having Rizzo be the straight man, essentially.
True. It also allows for something you don't get in the stage performances, is you can get some of the beautiful language that Dickens does insert into the written version.
Yep.
And that's one of the things I really appreciated upon second or third viewing was, when Gonzo starts reciting the text, it's like, that's quality.
They did not take a ton of liberties with a lot of the text. It's crazy in this movie.
Rizzo strikes me as a second. Always has a radar for things that are scary and troubling. And that was my only typing of Rizzo. I didn't go anywhere else. So I'll let TJ comment on that if I'm on the right track.
I am content to put him as a 6.
Yep.
Leaning in the more counterphobic side of things.
Correct.
And like you see a lot of really biting commentary. He says everything he thinks out loud. He's continually looking for like there isn't outward fearfulness the way that we see with some 6s, but there is a lot of I'm going to jump into this space because that's where we're at kind of movement. And he's constantly calling things into question.
Yes.
Like he is the one that is the most doubtful about any part of this story. He's like, he's constantly questioning Gonzo / Charles Dickens's omniscience.
So just a quick do the unpacking of that. For Gonzo, we're saying is Enneagram 4. Enneagram 4s are attention seekers who are withdrawn, solve problems emotionally, want others to feel the emotions that they have in order to solve problems. And 6s are security seekers who earn security by loyalty, have a hard time trusting themselves, and as TJ was saying, often can be kind of reckless in kind of proving to everybody else that they're not as fearful as they are. This is a great little pairing in terms of the narration. It creates an energy there because of that.
And to me, as a 4, interesting pairing in general, because I think some of the thinking of 6s I know, then realize none of them are going to listen to this, so I can say whatever I want. So some of the not easier pairings and relationships in my personal life are with 6s. I feel like there's some difficulty in both parties understanding and believing the best about each other. So the fact that there is that Gonzo Rizzo pairing so often, I think is super interesting, and I really love it.
Yeah. Well, the two are gonna introduce us to the lead of the story, who isn't a traditional hero and isn't actually even a antagonist or a anti-hero. I think Scrooge is a villain. Yeah, this is a story about a villain.
Yep. One of the rare instances where the protagonist of the story is also the antagonist of the story at the same time.
Yeah. The great Michael Caine. A huge list of credits.
Miss Congeniality.
Jaws 3.
4. Was it?
4, yes, 4. Excuse me.
Italian Job, Victory, Nolan's Batman trilogy, and for my money, what may be the greatest comedy of the 20th century, which is Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Oh my God, yeah.
Not necessarily a typecast actor, a very British actor who seems to have a ton of range.
Yeah. Like I have not seen him in anything that I was like, maybe not.
Right.
And even if the movie's not great, he's always
amazing. Yeah.
There's a TJ, have you seen the film adaptation of Noises Off?
Not in a long time.
It's anybody who knows that play, I think has very strong sort of not super positive feelings about that film, but he is one of the best comedy performances in that movie in a cast that boasts John Ritter and Carol Burnett. Like Michael Caine, I think, is the best performance in that movie.
Siskel and Ebert did their review of Muppet's Christmas Carol.
Speaking of Statler and Waldorf,
very right. Ebert was very high on it. Siskel was not, but quite favorable toward Michael Caine's performance, and that would be kind of case in point. It's even when he's in a bad movie, he's great.
Is that you saying this is a bad movie?
No, I'm saying that Michael Caine, even when Michael Caine is in bad movies,
okay, good.
Blame it on Rio.
One of the things I love, just absolutely love about this film, and I think it's maybe the sort of the central point of why this film works, is that like they told Michael Caine to do it straight.
Yeah.
Like every other Muppet, every other person that interacts with a Muppet, every other, like in every other movie where there are Muppets and real people, like everyone is interacting with the Muppets as though they're Muppets. And Michael Caine is playing Scrooge as though he is doing this like on stage in London, like in the West End. Like this is one of the most important roles he's playing Scrooge straight from start to finish.
Well, and beyond him being told to do that, that was his decision.
Right.
Like, I'm going to go do this film, and I'm going to treat this like I'm playing Scrooge. Like, I mean, yeah, like TJ said, if he's in like a West End performance, and it's my favorite internet meme about this and Muppet Treasure Island is the one that says the reason Michael Caine and Tim Curry are so good in their respective Muppet movies is that Michael Caine treats the Muppets as fellow actors and Tim Curry treats himself as a fellow Muppet.
Yes. Yes.
The thing that hits me on this front is that the Muppet Show is a variety show of the classical 70s variety show. And then they make some movies with those variety show characters. But this movie is a rebrand because never in the Muppet Show did you have a villain come and be the centerpiece. Mark Hamill shows up, or Sylvester Stallone shows up, or whoever the famous Willie Nelson shows up, and it's the famous person is with us. We're gonna sing with Elton John, and this
John Cleese is gonna do a sketch with it. I mean, it's a variety show. It is literally a variety show.
But this is a rebrand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the characters, but when you throw a villainous character in, and you even you elevate it to a Shakespearean kind of drama, and you introduce all the melancholy here. I think this is why the movie really pops for me in the canon of Muppet films, is that it's so different from everything that had come before, and they really land the plane.
Yeah. And where a lot of treatments of stories like this are adaptations, this one is, we mentioned this earlier, it's so much of the original language. And particularly, like, every single thing that Scrooge says is straight out of the book.
Right. Yeah. Love that. I had mentioned it earlier, but the line that sells me on this is they break into song, and all of the Muppets have that Muppet energy, that back and forth. They're singing together, and they say, "There goes
Mr. Humbug, there goes Mr. Grim. If they gave a prize for being mean, the winner would be him." Old Scrooge.
And I remember seeing that and going, I get it.
Yeah.
And I'm in.
Yep.
I'm just in. Because it had the manic energy, and yet it had Caine being so dark and Scrooge-like and just nailing it. And I was just like, this is going to be amazing.
And like there might be some actual internal meanness, but the thing I think is there with Scrooge, and I think a lot of last year I saw 5 versions of A Christmas Carol. Unbelievably too many. And I already have tickets for 2 here in Denver, and that's too many. But a lot of productions portray Scrooge as just like he's become mean with no choice. Whereas this one, Michael Caine gets it like, this guy's choosing to live like this.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's true.
Like, he's aware that song is being sung, because at the end of it, he turns around and looks at everybody. Like, he knows everyone's like, here comes this giant, awful person. And he's content to just glower through the streets of London, being lauded for being a monster. And I think that is something that is lacking from 99% of the Scrooges that I've seen in film or on stage.
This story is so often told in a way that wants us to feel sympathy for Scrooge because of his tragic past, because of how he got to where he is. But this version, which I feel is so much closer to the tone of the book, is they want to remind us that Scrooge chose to get his life to where it's at, and he enjoys, like, his darkness is that he enjoys being this.
everything about Scrooge is choices. I mean, like everything about everybody is the choices we make. But that's what's so great about the flashbacks is you have to see Scrooge make all the choices that he makes,
right?
As a kid, as a young man, and you have to see him, and you almost have to understand why he made them, because and this movie doesn't lean into that as much as the book does, but of just how really awful Scrooge's young life was, and the version of the play I saw at the Alliance last year, they included a couple other scenes in young Scrooge's life, watching bad things befall people who didn't have enough money in business. So you see why he makes those choices, and you don't. Maybe you don't necessarily feel badly for him, but you understand why he makes them. And that's what makes Scrooge's choice at the end of the play. So he's got to be a real powerful ass throughout the whole thing in order for that switch at the end to punch you in the feels, because he chooses to get his life together.
As you're talking, what was going through my head is that there's only a few characters that the greatest actors in the world want to play. They all want to play it. So like Hamlet is this. Like if you're the greatest actor in the world, you need, or like recently a lot of great actors have tried to jump into the Joker role. But as I think through all of the Scrooges, like there are some titans who have decided I'm gonna put my energy into that role. Jim Carrey being at the top of the list, obviously. I mean,
Get Out.
No, but in terms
Gary
of
Oldman
like,
is the best performance in that particular movie. But yeah.
As you think through Christmas carols, my favorites, I grew up with George C. Scott's version of Scrooge. And then I think, for my money, the most beautiful depiction of this is actually Disney's. I think that film is absolutely lovely.
Oh, Mickey's Christmas Carol?
Yeah, with Scrooge McDuck as Scrooge. Just every frame of that is just a little piece of artwork. And again, I have a fondness for that because I saw it when I was young. But do you have a favorite Scrooge?
Excluding Michael Caine, because Caine is my favorite, but just for the sake of discussion, anybody else? Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Need to go back and rewatch that.
And I don't think he does a great job getting the softer side of him. I was thinking about this earlier today. Caine gets both.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart is he's got the best voice in the world. So, and those moments where Scrooge is like really fulminating against Christmas, like, are there no poorhouses? Are there no prison? Like, Patrick Stewart is so scary and good. I don't know that he gets the more tender moments. But yeah, Patrick Stewart.
Obviously,
Ryan Reynolds.
Obviously, Bill Murray's is held up there.
Oh, sure.
Oh, of course.
But Bill Murray's is entirely about comedy. So, like that one's a little different. I'm a big fan of the Susan Lucci version.
Oh?
Yeah, there's a deep cut. This is yes, she was in a adaptation that's just awful. Like, it's very Hallmark movie soap opera-y, and it's great. I really enjoyed watching that one with my mom when we were younger. But I nothing compares to Michael Caine to me.
I am glad you brought up Bill Murray, though, because that movie is an accomplishment, I think.
Yes.
I think Bill Murray does a beautiful job, even though it is all about comedy. I think he still gets the deep isolation and loneliness in Scrooge. Like, he pulls that off. And that might just be Bill Murray, but it's if it ain't broke.
Right.
Well, we're introduced to the character. He enters his collecting house.
Let us deal with the eviction notices for tomorrow, Mr. Cratchit.
Tomorrow's Christmas, sir.
Very well. You may gift wrap them.
I think just to backtrack, the really good introduction to the character, and it's been so long since I've read the book, I can't remember. The first thing we see him do when he goes into the accounting house is point his walking stick at somebody and say, "What is this?" And he physically throws this Muppet out of the building.
He was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, clutching, covetous old sinner.
Bob Cratchit?
Yes, Mr. Scrooge?
Who is this?
It's Mr. Applegate, sir. He's here to speak to you about his mortgage.
Please, Mr. Scrooge, I know you're very angry about this, and I didn't mean to fall behind in the payments. Lord knows it being Christmas and all. Oh, please don't shout at me, sir. That and, of course, little Gwen. Her lungs aren't right. The doctor takes his share, don't he? I mean, you can yell and scream and you're right, but it won't do no good because I'm the stone you can't squeeze blood from, and that's the truth.
I'm the stone you can't squeeze blood from, and that's the truth. As he's getting thrown out the door.
The thing about Scrooge, just to go into this character for 2 seconds, this is one of the few characters that's almost an archetypical character. Like it's the word Scrooge is part of our vocabulary now. I was reading, one writer says of this character, as Don Quixote is the archetype of the foolish idealist and Hamlet of the vacillating intellectual, so Scrooge is the archetype of spiritual miserliness, of the heart that begrudges the joy of others. Indeed, one mark of his archetypical status is the fact that his name has entered our language as a generic term of abuse. Woo!
Isn't Ebenezer, like, biblically, it's like a pile of rocks or something like that, or stones, or am I...
Webster's has it as a commemoration of divine assistance.
Which I also think is interesting because, one could argue Scrooge gets divine assistance.
Right.
I mean, divine but otherworldly assistance in this story. I think that's really, I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah. Marker of memory would be kind of all over the story in some ways. Mm-hmm. That's good. I hadn't thought about either of those. When we've talked about Scrooge, TJ and I have routinely referenced this character, archetypical character that he is, as a great example of a villainous five. We've paired Scrooge with characters like another British character, paired him with Smaug from The Hobbit. And that image of, it's not just greed, but it's that form of avarice where I hoard at no benefit to myself. Mm-hmm. I hoard for the sake of hoarding. I hoard even knowing that my hoarding causes misery for others. And that image, spiritual miserliness, I think is a great phrase for that particular type of villainy, that the five who hoards, and because they hoard, is in control, and now you won't tell them what to do. They're going to the low side of their security number. That's all over this character.
Yeah, seeing money and resources as a zero-sum game. If you have some, that means I don't have that.
Yeah.
And so I have to have all of it in order to make sure that I'm protected.
I don't know if I agree that it's just hoarding it to hoard it. I think so much of it for Scrooge is coming from not having it himself and seeing how harmed everybody else who hasn't got money, food, resources is. I think that is the motivation behind his. Maybe it's not by the time we meet him in A Christmas Carol, but I have no reason to doubt that it starts with him seeing this is what happens to people in this world who haven't got it. Therefore, I'm going to do every single thing I can in my power to make sure that does not happen to me. Yep. And then slowly that pushes everybody out of his life. And then he just decides I'm okay with that because now I have the things that I see prevent quality of life in his mind.
Yep.
This is a good place, I think, for us to release the audience into watching the movie. It is. We're releasing this Thanksgiving 2023. Would love to invite you to watch this movie. We're going to come back next time and do the deep dive into all the characters, all of the beats of the film, and just going to love the hell out of this journey. It would mean the world to us, as always, if you share this with somebody you love, preferably somebody who is at home or just getting off of work from the mad Black Friday and needs some comfort, needs some good comfort food to watch. And that's what I got. Daniel, you got anything to sign us off here?
No, just that I think this is one of not only the greatest Christmas Carol adaptations, but I think it's one of the best Muppet pieces of art that exists. And yeah, really enjoying talking about it. And yeah, see y'all in 89 minutes after you've watched A Muppet Christmas Carol, the full version with the song. That's the last thing I'll say. Watch the version that has the "When Love Is Gone" song with Belle cut from it, because it's
you have to YouTube that one.
No, it's on Disney Plus. You can watch the
Is it?
you can watch the extent. You can watch the full version on Disney if you go to extras.
Oh.
The full version of it is there.
Yeah,
And
there's
I
a
think for
widescreen version and a full version, and you want the
Yeah.
full version. You'll
Yeah.
have to deal with the black bars on the right and left. It's fine.
And it's fine. But that is so gorgeous, and I think it with in the way that songs do what just words and speaking cannot. That's a huge part of Scrooge's story, particularly in this film. So I think you have to see that in order to get the rest of the movie. So less light of an ending and more of a command, but you're welcome. You can see Michael Caine cry, and therefore so will you.
That's how that works.
Yep. Unless you're made out of stone.
You got anything
Ebenezer.
else to add there, TJ?
Nothing to add to that.
He's Statler. He's Waldorf. My name's Jeff Cook. Who you want? Just isn't interesting.
Straight to the chopper! I drink your milkshake.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
To infinity and beyond!
Why so serious?
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.